Hello. Welcome to Stories by Snuggler Bear. This story is called The Secret of Sycamore House. Jack Connor had always been fascinated by local history, so when he met elderly Mr. Harrison at the town library while researching the first house in town, the old Sycamore house, he couldn't believe his luck. The old man's eyes lit up as he shared stories about the mysterious mansion that had stood empty at the edge of town for decades. "That place holds more secrets than the whole town combined," Mr. Harrison said, leaning forward in his chair. "Back in the 1940s, I was just a boy when I snuck in there with some friends. We found something so strange that we ran out and never went back." Jack's curiosity was sparked. H invited his girlfriend, Cindy Cole, another history enthusiast, to join him on the weekend. She eagerly agreed. His best friend, Adam Marsh, overhearing their conversation, chimed in, "I'll come with you. I'll be your protection." They all laughed. "I'll ask Isabel if she wants to come as well," he added. With permission from the Historical Society where he and Adam volunteered, Jack's plan was set in motion. Saturday morning, armed with flashlights, cameras, pens and research materials, the four teens made their way through the overgrown garden path to Sycamore House. The mansion's Victorian architecture loomed against the afternoon sky, its weathered facade telling stories of decades past. Enthusiastically, they searched through the house, admiring the old furniture and beautiful decorations. Underneath layers of dust and cobwebs, they uncovered stunning vintage photographs, aged books, and various intriguing artifacts. However, none of their findings hinted at any mystery or scandal. That was until they stumbled upon the upstairs library. Turning away from the group, Jack noticed a panel loosening from the wall. Curious, he reached out to touch it. To his shock, it detached completely and crashed to the floor. "Shit," he gasped. "What happened?" Adam asked, turning toward him. Jack's eyes widened as they all peered into the dark opening. "Oh wow," he murmured. They carefully removed the paperwork, photos and letters from the hole. "Wow," said Cindy, "maybe clues to some kind of intriguing historic secret." Huddled in the dusty library, the four friends sat in a circle on the floor, carefully examining their discoveries by flashlight. The letters and documents dated back to World War II. The papers revealed that the house's owner, Elizabeth Sycamore, had been part of a network helping to relocate European art pieces that had been stolen by Nazi forces. Through these documents, the teens pieced together how Elizabeth had worked with the monument's men to catalogue and return priceless artworks. Her house's strange architecture, including hidden rooms and secret passages, had served a noble purpose. "I can't believe it," Cindy whispered, holding one of Elizabeth's letters delicately. Everyone thought this place was haunted, but she was actually saving priceless artwork right under their noses. Isabel held up a black and white photograph of Elizabeth standing beside a crate painting. "Look at her face here, she looks so determined. Can you imagine doing something this dangerous during the war?" The teenagers had also found her diary. Adam said, engrossed in its pages filled with elegant handwriting that described her secret work. By day, she maintained the image of an eccentric socialite who hosted elaborate parties. But her true mission was far more dangerous, using her social connections and knowledge of the art world to help track down stolen masterpieces and return them to their rightful owners, many of whom were Jewish families forced to flee their homes. "And she never told anyone," Adam added. "Listen to this journal entry. Another successful delivery tonight. The townspeople's gossip about ghosts continues to be the perfect cover. If only they knew that the eerie sounds they hear, creaking pipes, shifting foundations, and a colony of barn owls in the attic, are masking the real activity, the movement of art crates. The so-called mysterious lights and shadows. That's just my team and me, working through the night to catalogue, pack, and transport priceless artworks." Adam shook his head in admiration. Unbelievable. Jack was examining the architectural plans of the house. She modified these walls herself. See these notes in the margins? She created hidden spaces that looked like normal storage from the outside. This wasn't just bravery, it was brilliant engineering. We have to make sure people know about this, Cindy said firmly. Not the ghost stories people have been telling for years, but the real story. She deserves to be remembered for what she actually did. Birth certificates, wills, and diaries helped piece together Elizabeth Sycamore's extraordinary life. She emerged as a woman far ahead of her time. Born in 1898 into a wealthy Boston family, Elizabeth pursued her passion for art history at Wellesley College. A marriage certificate revealed that in 1916, 18-year-old Elizabeth wed Herbert Brown, a wealthy man significantly older than herself. Tragically, Herbert died in 1918 while away at the war, the same year their daughter, Violet, was born. In her early 20s, the well-to-do socialite travelled across Europe with Violet and an au pair, immersing herself in its great museums and dedicating herself to painting, her greatest love. In 1935, Elizabeth inherited her uncle's mansion and moved into Sycamore House with Violet. She transformed it into a haven for art and a refuge for artists escaping the rising tensions in Europe. Her diaries spoke of Violet's happiness in marrying George, a kind and gentle man who had won her heart. Elizabeth also wrote with pride about Violet's success as an artist, a legacy that carried on her own love for creativity. The most heartfelt discovery was a collection of thank you letters from families who had regained their treasured heirlooms thanks to Elizabeth's efforts. She had never sought recognition for her work, and after the war, she remained in the house, living a quiet life until her passing in 1975. She never remarried, devoting the rest of her years to her passion for art and justice. I wonder what happened to Violet, Adam mused. I really don't know, Isabel admitted. Why didn't she inherit this grand old house? Maybe we should find out, Jack suggested. As they were about to leave the library, Isabel was enchanted by a beautiful old mahogany cupboard tucked in the corner. Hey, come look at this, she called to the others. The back panel sounds strange when I tap it. A hollow sound resulted. Jack aimed his flashlight at the cupboard while Adam carefully felt around the edges. There's a slight groove here, Adam said, pressing gently. With a soft click, a hidden compartment sprang open. Inside, they found a bundle of letters tied with a faded blue ribbon, the paper yellowed with age but still intact. Kneeling before the cupboard, Cindy carefully removed the small bundles of letters and pictures. She carefully untied the ribbon and gasped as she read the signature on the first letter. I think that these are from Hemingway, she exclaimed, her hands trembling slightly. Listen to this, my dearest Elizabeth, your courage in these dark times reminds me why art matters. What you're doing is more important than any story I could write. No way, Adam breathed, leaning in closer. Keep reading. The letters revealed that Hemingway had met Elizabeth in Paris before the war, and they had maintained a deep friendship. He had occasionally helped her make connections with art dealers who knew about stolen pieces, using his own network of contacts throughout Europe. Look at this one, Jack said, holding up another letter. The night we spent discussing art in that small cafe near Montmartre seems like a lifetime ago. Your work gives me hope that beauty and truth will survive these terrible times. When this is all over, I'll write about heroes like you, though I doubt anyone would believe it. He never did write about her, Isabel mused, carefully reading through more letters. She probably made him promise not to. It would have blown her cover. The letters showed a different side of Elizabeth, not just the brave art rescuer, but a woman who shared a deep intellectual connection with one of the greatest writers of their time. Their correspondence was filled with discussions about art, literature, and their hopes for the world after the war. The friends took photographs of the letters and pictures before wrapping them back up exactly as they were and returning them to their secure hiding spot.
What happened to Violet?
Jack and Adam combed through every record they could find, but the deeper they dug, the more perplexing the mystery became. Mentions of Violet and George appeared in census reports and art exhibitions throughout the late 30s and early 40s, yet after 1947, Their trail abruptly ended. It was as if they had vanished without a trace. A newspaper article from that year noted that the couple had been seen boarding a ship to England, possibly to aid in the war effort. But beyond that, there was nothing, no arrival records, no obituaries, no further documentation of their existence. Jack and Adam exchanged uneasy glances. "Where did they go?" Adam murmured. Jack exhaled slowly. "And why does it feel like someone didn't want them to be found?" "Maybe we'll never know the truth," Adam said quietly. Jack nodded. "Maybe not." On Monday, when Jack and Adam presented their findings to the Historical Society, the president was ecstatic. "This is incredible," she exclaimed, flipping through the documents and notes they had compiled. Elizabeth Sycamore's story was already fascinating, but this mystery surrounding Violet and George takes it to another level. She paced the room, eyes alight with excitement. "We have to dig deeper. If they truly disappeared without a trace, there must be something, old letters, hidden records, even personal accounts from that time, that could shed light on what happened." Jack nodded. "We were thinking the same thing. There must be more out there. Maybe war records, or even family connections we haven't uncovered yet." Adam leaned forward. "What if someone in town has a connection to Violet? A distant relative or someone who remembers stories passed down?" The president clapped her hands together. "Exactly. Let's organize a community outreach, post about this in the local paper, on social media, and see if anyone has information. Who knows what might turn up?" Jack and Adam exchanged an excited glance. The search for Violet and George was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. Their discoveries made local headlines, and eventually, the Historical Society secured funding to restore Sycamore House as a museum. Mr. Harrison was invited to the opening ceremony, where he finally learned the true story behind the strange things he'd glimpsed as a boy: crates of artwork being carefully moved in the dead of night. The museum now featured a special exhibition about Elizabeth's life and work, including photographs of her in her youth, standing proudly among the artists and scholars she'd helped save. Her story inspired a new generation of young people to understand that real heroism often happens quietly, behind the scenes, one brave choice at a time. After a lot of research and plenty of help from people online and social media, Jack and Adam uncovered the truth about Violet and George. It seemed that Violet, probably inspired by her mother, during World War II, was deeply involved in clandestine operations from their home. Their activities were compromised, forcing them to flee. They boarded a ship to England under assumed identities, continuing their efforts abroad. Their research led to an even more remarkable discovery. After the war, Elizabeth Sycamore maintained some correspondence with a couple living in a quiet English village, David and Betty Cotton. Through letters and documents, the teens uncovered that these were false identities. The couple had been Elizabeth's family and during the war, helped to transport and protect stolen artworks. In their village, Violet had become known as Betty Cotton and had continued her work as an artist, while George had become David Cotton, a respected teacher. They had a daughter, Elizabeth Violet Cotton, born in 1947, whom they named after their brave American friend. The most touching moment came when the young investigators located Elizabeth Violet Cotton and invited her to the Historical Society's museum opening. During her speech at the ceremony, she revealed a personal connection that brought tears to many eyes. In 1954, when she was 7 years old, she had met Elizabeth Sycamore herself. It had been arranged quietly, disguised as a casual visit with an American family friend. Only years later did her parents reveal to her the identity of the elegant woman who had spent that afternoon showing her art books and telling her stories about paintings. "I remember her kindness," Elizabeth Violet told the gathered crowd, "and how her eyes lit up when she talked about art. I didn't know then that I was named after her, or that she was my grandmother. But I never forgot how she made me feel that art was magical, like it held secrets and stories that needed to be protected." Jack, Cindy, Adam, and Isabel became local heroes of sorts, not for chasing ghosts, but for uncovering an important piece of their town's connection to world history. The house still stood proudly at the edge of town, but now its real story was even more fascinating than the spooky tales that had surrounded it for so long. Elizabeth Sycamore's legacy lived on, teaching visitors that sometimes the most remarkable stories are hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to discover them. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this story. Join me again soon. Bye.